Hello, my name is Jesse Goldberg, and my very special guest today is Peyton. And Peyton is, you called yourself a music business third generation?
Third generation music business
Third generation music business. And you're very much into retro stuff like Beatles and things like that.
Yeah, I consider myself a time traveler, not someone who's into that kind of stuff, because I feel like I probably was there in a previous lifetime, if those exist, because I know way too much to just be an enthusiast.
What? Maybe we'll get into that later. But what got you into the stuff? Because the music was better, or?
Well, when I was 6, they used to do reruns of the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family, and the Monkees was my favorite show, and I had a crush on Davy Jones. No one ever told me what a rerun was, so I would run home and profess my love to Davy Jones on my screen, and then go to school the next day and say, "Did you guys see the Brady Bunch? And Davy took Marcia to the prom?" And everyone looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And that was pre the internet being in everyone's home, so my dad found a copy of the National Enquirer with a picture of what Davy Jones looked like in a very unflattering light and showed me. And I locked myself in my room for 2 days and cried, because I would never be able to marry Davy Jones.
Because he was a lot older then.
Well, that doesn't really matter to me, but he was unavailable to me at 6 years old, and I was devastated. And ever since, and then my biological parents ended up splitting up when I was 10. And when you're going through changes and that kind of stuff, and you're sleeping in different places, it's really scary. So I used to watch television to fall asleep at night. And that was around the time, I'm dating myself here, but that was around the time that the Beatles' One album came out. And they would run the infomercial between, midnight and 2 in the morning. And that always kind of made me feel better for some reason. So I thought, well, for my birthday, I should ask for that CD. And I got it, and I loved it, and I was listening to everything. And then track 12 happened, and it was Day Tripper. And I'll never forget that moment where I heard the opening to Day Tripper. And I sat there in front of my stereo just like, what just happened to me? And I got chills, and I was sweaty, and I was confused, and I pretty much marked my life started at that moment.
So Day Tripper changed your life?
Day Tripper changed my life, saved my life, and ruined my life at the same time, I'd have to say. I never was the same after that. I was ruined for life. Now,
why did it save your life, ruin your life? Why did it save your life?
Well, when you're a kid and you're kind of chubby and you're kind of dorky, and
You were chubby and dorky?
Yeah, extremely. I had glasses and braces and massive amounts of acne and big hair, and no one wanted to be my friend, so I would...
So what happened to you? You're beautiful now.
I still have the big hair, and I'm still a little nerdy, but I just changed the outside a little bit. But
do you think I could change me?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But so then I discovered, okay, well, who inspired the Beatles? And of course you get into Dylan, you get into all these other people, and I got into Elvis. And it's funny that I got into Elvis and I had access to someone who lived at Graceland the whole time, and it took me a few years to realize it. My stepdad, who essentially raised me from then on out, is T.G. Shepherd, who in his own right is he sold 21 #1 hits. He wrote The Best Part of Waking Up is Folgers in Your Cup, but he also lived.
Best part of waking up.
Yeah.
He wrote that as Folgers.
You can't sing the whole thing,
cup.
because then you owe me money.
You
royalty.
get money?
Yeah, I will eventually, knock on wood.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Here's hoping, unless they disown me after this interview. But, so he actually lived at Graceland. So
how did he get to meet Elvis?
Well, he met Elvis when he was 15. He ran away from home, and he was sleeping outside this roller rink in Memphis. And
where did he start out?
He started out in Humboldt, Tennessee. And he ran away from home, was sleeping outside this roller rink, and Elvis used to rent movie theaters, and he would rent roller rinks and all sorts of stuff for his posse, his crew, at odd hours of the night, because he was always jacked up at nighttime. And he was sleeping, and he felt this tap on his shoulder, and he said he woke up and Elvis Presley's standing right in front of him, and he thought, what's going on?
So he's in Memphis?
He's in Memphis.
And he's sleeping outside of, like a homeless guy?
Yeah, he was homeless.
Oh, okay.
And Elvis said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I sleep out here." And he says, "Well, I need one more on my team for this game, Kill. do you want to be on my team? And he said that when Elvis Presley asks you to do anything, you just jump up and say, yes, sir. And he did, and he went inside, and they played Kill for 5 hours. And
Kill is
football on roller skates.
Football on roller skates. Inside.
Inside.
Okay.
And when he found out that he had nowhere to go, he said, no, you're coming home with me. And he lived at Graceland for 6 years. So
he lived at Graceland? From that moment on, he lived at Graceland?
From the ages of 15 to 21, lived at Graceland. And he became a member of the Memphis Mafia.
Was he a songwriter or a musician before that?
He wanted to be. But the thing is with Elvis, he didn't want to feel like Elvis to think he was using him, or TG to think that he was using Elvis, rather. And his real name is actually not T.G. Shepherd, but he may kill me if I reveal what it was. So he was going under a different name, and Elvis had got him a job at RCA. He was working for Artists and Relations. And
so while he knew Elvis at the Memphis Mafia, he wasn't T.G. Shepherd, he was something else?
He was something else.
He was Herman Schwartz, right?
No, he wasn't. Schwartz. But he released this record under a fake name, and he would go around the house, and Elvis had heard that, it eventually got out and became a big deal. And Elvis was walking around the house singing it, and he was going, how awkward, I've got to tell him eventually that this is me. And Elvis figured it out one day and said, why didn't you tell me that was you? And ended up buying him his first tour bus after that, so that was pretty cool. I think I'm the only person in this town who has access to one of the original TCB necklaces, so that's a lot cooler than a lot of other things my friends are going to inherit one day. And then before TG, my grandfather was Conway Twitty's road manager for 30 years and also worked with George Jones on his dog food project, amongst several other things. So when people say that they're Nashville, you really don't get much more Nashville than third generation, because everyone here is kind of from somewhere else trying to make it. And I've just been here my whole life because I don't know any different. So
tell me, let's go back to the Beatles. How did you get to be, you are a gigantic Beatles fan.
I am a geek when it comes to the Beatles. Lo and behold, I'm the biggest Beatlemaniac that I know. Well, actually, I do know people that are crazier than I am, but I'm up there. I'm definitely.
So you started out with the number one
with the
album.
one record, and then, or the one CD rather, and then I started, people, once they find out that I'm obsessed with something, they kind of just give me all, so it's any birthday, Christmas, any holiday whatsoever, or just in general, people feel the need to give me things with the Beatles on them. So I have salt and pepper shakers, cookie jars, blankets, I have action figures, lunch boxes, everything. And someone heard that I started liking the Beatles, and that's when the whole collection started. And now I have a 6-foot-tall John Lennon in my living room, a portrait, not the actual John Lennon. That would be cool.
What's the Beatles? I break them down to 3 eras: the first era, the middle era, and the final era. Like the first era up until Rubber Soul, and then Rubber Soul till Sgt. Pepper, and then Sgt. Pepper on. So what's your favorite era?
Oh, well, my first I like boys in a way that I think I might want to kiss them, not like Davy Jones, where I just wanted to walk around with him and play maracas, was watching, I'd just gotten into the Beatles, and I had gotten my hands on a copy of the Ed Sullivan Show, but the one from 1965.
The Miami ones.
Yeah, and there's a moment, for some reason I always like Chubby John, like a little heavier, and he has his bangs are kind of swooped over, and he's playing I Feel Fine, and he does this thing where he looks at the camera and makes this weird...
He was looking at you, Peyton.
He was, and I felt it, and I let out that fangirl scream that you see on all of these, like all these girls that are clutching their hair, and I had that moment in my living room over John. So, as far as looks go, John in 1965 was always the cutest to me. But honestly, with the Beatles, I kind of feel like an unconditional love for them. So honestly, minus a few 80s solo projects that were less than sterling, they really can't do much wrong to me in my book. There are a few really just terrible songs, but even then their terrible songs are still 10 times better than most people's masterpieces.
What about what about their solo career? Which one in the solo career did you like the best?
I like them all, honestly. They all have really good...
Let's go to John. When the John solo career, what did you like the best?
It changes every week. It really does. I've been in a George mood this week. But John, for me, probably the Plastic Ono Band. That record, if I had one John
Lennon. The first one?
The first one. It's
where he's lying on...
where he's laying on the ground. He's got Yoko
that one
with
right
him.
There.
Actually, it is this one, and I will tell you why if I don't knock everything over, because this is essentially a greatest hits record. In my opinion, he's got Mother and Hold On and I Found Out and Working Class Hero, which is probably up there. And then we have Remember and Love and God and all these other...
It was a record before Imagine.
Yeah, and I love Imagine. I love what it is, but Imagine's probably my least favorite Lennon song.
Really?
My favorite Lennon song is this weird one called Out of the Blue. And I kind of think like it's the ultimate love song, which is a little crazy. But George Harrison, my favorite George Harrison record is Wonderwall.
Really?
He doesn't even sing on it.
I know that's that electronic one.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if you want to trip people out and you have them come over, and you know I have all these like Indian rugs in my house, and I don't have a table in my house. I have just cushions on the floor, and I put that on, and they kind of just go off in this weird head trip, and without even having to do anything, they just kind of go, whoa, and it's moved more people than, you know, obviously All Things Must Pass is brilliant, and it's a masterpiece, but that in itself is just, it freaks people out, and I kind of love that effect that it has on people.
I talked to the guy who I actually interviewed him. His name was Ken Scott, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think he produced or was the engineer on All Things Must Pass. Mm-hmm. And he said he came back 30 years later and did the remastering of it with George.
Yeah.
He said it was really weird. Did you know that guy? He just moved to town.
Yeah, I've seen him around town. And then Paul has had some bad moments. Paul's had some great moments. Paul's had some really bad moments. Ringo, I think, like I said, I have an unconditional love with all of them because they did help me get through, you know, when your parents are divorcing, and those were my friends, and honestly, every single close friend of mine I've met at some form of a Beatles convention or a record show. It's a little embarrassing, but
So when did you stop being pudgy and whatever?
About 2 years ago.
That was it?
Yeah. 2 years ago on the pudginess, anyway.
What about stop being with, you know, unaccepted by your friends and stuff like that?
That still's going on. That's why I meet all my friends at Beatles shows.
So you don't have any growing up friends? Too many?
No, I don't have any left.
Right.
None left.
So now that you know the Beatles and you know the Monkees,
yes.
Who's better?
Well, I did get to meet the Monkees.
You met them all?
All of them except Davey. I work at the Ryman when I'm not out and about. I do wardrobe at the Ryman occasionally, and I finagled my way backstage to meet the three remaining. And
He already died?
Davey died several years back, okay. And I was in a dark depression for about 2 days over it. But I'm just kidding. It was only a slight depression, more of a gray one. I met Mickey Dolenz and got to spend a good half hour with him and his wife, and I rarely fangirl. I've been backstage for Ringo. I barely got to speak to him, but I got my moment, and I was very calm and collected. But 6-year-old Peyton came out, and Mickey Dolenz is standing right in front of me, and he's talking to me, and he's telling me stuff about Jack Nicholson and Head and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I just go, oh, can I just hug you a little? And mind you, I'm in 6-inch heels, so I'm towering over him. And he hugged me like he'd known me my whole life and signed my record, and they were all lovely and wonderful, but I had that moment of I'm going to burst from the inside when I got that moment with him. I wish I brought the picture. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this.
Did you have any moments with Mike Nesmith or Peter Tork?
Mike Nesmith asked me if I liked his shoes. He was wearing these sparkly silver shoes, and I said, yes, I do, definitely. And he said, well, enjoy the show, and asked me, you know, what I was doing there and that kind of thing. Peter Tork, I spoke to him briefly, but he was more concerned about how did he do with his performance, and I assured him he was great.
What did they do for the Davey parts on, like, Daydream Believer or
they brought the audience member up to sing Daydream Believer, and we all kind of sang along.
An audience member sang Daydream
Yeah.
Believer? What about the other Davey songs?
They didn't really do them. They focused more on the Mike catalog, and Mickey obviously sang a big chunk of those. And it was honestly one of the best, probably the best show I've ever seen or worked for. And that's saying a lot because I've seen Paul several times. I've seen Ringo, and I was backstage for Ringo. And I've seen pretty much all the greats, but that one really just, I was 6 again, and I got to hug one of my crushes, and it was great.
Well, you know, the knock against them went back in the 60s when they came out was that they didn't play their own instruments. And
No one plays their own instruments now anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, now it doesn't matter anymore.
No, now it doesn't matter.
Did you ever
at all.
see the movie Daydream Believer about the Monkees?
I own it on DVD.
Oh, I didn't know it was that. I watched it on VHS.
It's a bootleg.
It's good, isn't it?
It's really good.
Isn't it good,
And then
though?
I just watched the Sonny and Cher made-for-TV movie, too. The beat goes on.
But isn't the Monkees movie good? That
really good.
all the actors were good in
It's
it.
really good. I
Yeah.
hate to say it. And then I hate going, I own it on DVD.
That was only
bootleg.
2 years. They were
Yeah.
only on for 2 years.
I Love Lucy was only,
6 years.
yeah, it was only, or the Lucy show, I was just reading up about that, was only 2 years. The show she had after. And then Sonny and Cher was only 2 years, too.
Well, no, but see, I Love Lucy had 6
No, but
regular
I meant
seasons.
her show afterwards only lasted 2 years.
No, it didn't.
The Lucy show did.
No, he had another show up there called Here's Lucy.
Google.
You're wrong.
Google it.
You're wrong. But the I Love Lucy had 6 seasons, then they had like 3 seasons
Who
where
cares?
they were.
Desi Arnaz was a drunk and beat her up anyway. Moving on.
Really?
Yeah. Watch the movie.
beat her up?
It's on Netflix. It's
Oh.
called Lucy. You should watch it.
Oh, I should, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Well, who else did you get to meet?
I don't know if I should. I might not get hired back by the Ryman if I keep blabbing. Well, my mom is friends with Barry Gibb, and just got to sing with him at the Ryman. So I guess I can.
Did you show him your record player?
Yeah, he's a family friend, so I can talk about him.
Oh, but did you show him the record? You told me before the
Yeah,
show said you
I
had something.
do. I'm a Bee Gees geek too. So I have the thermos, and I have the T-shirts, and I have the record player that has a built-in strobe light, because that seems like a great idea to have that.
You know, when they first came out, the first song I heard of theirs was New York Mining Disaster in
Yeah, and
1941.
I'm sure Barry was sick of signing Saturday Night Fever, and I mean, I'm his friend's kid, so I'm probably already irritating as it is, but I showed up and I had the first Bee Gees record. There was actually 2 people in the band that weren't brothers.
I remember the first Bee Gees record.
And he tried to buy the record off of me. He says,
Really?
I don't have this one. Can I buy it? And I said, no, but you can sign it.
He didn't have that one?
No, he didn't have it. His wife tried to buy it off of me, and I said, no.
You should have jacked the price up on him.
No.
$1,000.
He signed it anyway. He signed my Bee Gees thermos.
Yeah, then
too,
sell it
so.
after he signed it.
No. I'm not like that.
Oh.
But I think, and then I've got, the last one I got was a Linda Ronstadt autograph. I didn't meet her, but I finagled that one in to someone.
She can't sing anymore, I heard.
No,
because of her
she's actually my
disease.
biological mother,
Who?
Linda Ronstadt.
No,
she just
she's
gave me
not.
up for adoption. I'm just kidding.
She looks like
I
you.
know. And I've met Peter Frampton. He tried on one of my coats. I'm trying to think of who else. I've met so many people. I worked for Stevie Nicks and Rod Stewart last summer. That was a really good show. I'm trying to think of who else. I work for everybody around town.
You ever meet any of the Beatles?
I had a brief moment with Ringo, but I like to
Oh, yeah, sure, you told me
hold
about
on to that for my collection on the inside. It's a special moment that will only, it's just something special for me. I did have a moment with Todd Rundgren, though, because he was in the All-Star Band. And he was crazy, but awesome.
So tell me, getting back to your retro tastes.
Yeah.
Where do they stem from? I mean, why? What do you think? Let's talk about music. What do you think
Right.
of music now?
Honestly,
Let's go into that. Yeah, honestly, what do you think about music now, without cursing?
that's the problem. I'm so disappointed, especially in Nashville, because we are Music City, but we haven't been really producing much that's worthy of giving us the title anymore. You know, I used to see Johnny Cash and June Carter walking around town, and I would think those people are stars. And used to be able to walk down Music Row, and now I call it Death Row, because it's just, tumbleweeds. And part of it is because everyone is digital now, and part of it is because everyone thinks they should be making a record even when they're not. I'm really sad about it, because the people that I know that are really talented aren't the ones that are getting the notoriety.
As a fan, do you have any idea why? What do you suspect the reason would be?
Well, I have, and I do write this on my blog, I do have a crash course for becoming the ultimate rock god, because if you've noticed, we haven't had one in a few years.
What is your blog?
It's PeytonPlace.com.
Peyton-Place.
Peyton-Place.com.
And it's Peyton, P-A-Y?
P-A-Y-T-O-N.
Because Peyton Place, the other one is P-E-Y.
P-E-Y, yeah.
Okay.
I think people are dumber than they used to be. They're not as well read. They don't have the desire to be an intelligent human being, and
it reflects in the music.
It reflects in the music. And I actually wrote this blog about people taking the easy way out in becoming this, and obviously I, being on it from this, and I'm not a musician, well, I dabble, but I'm not one that does it professionally. I've dated a lot of musicians because everyone in this town is a musician, and I've seen a lot of the same patterns over and over again. People aren't well read, they're not willing to put in the work, and they're not willing to starve. And I don't think that they would die for the music. And I'm not saying literally, well, the Stones said if I could stick my knife in my heart and spill it all over the stage. And I don't think that most people are that way anymore. I think that they're just wanting to be famous. And in this society where,
that's what I think too.
Where we have the Kim Kardashians and the Honey Boo Boos, and you can pretty much be famous, but not talented. And I was talking to someone the other day about Harry Nilsson, who is a genius. And he would not have made it today because of the way he looked, or because of the way he thought, or any of that kind of stuff. And but now we have, Justin Bieber, who, thank God, has retired. When you have to retire at 19, there's a problem with you. But I'm really sad because I know what music can be, and I know how music affects people. And I know.
Do you feel like it's hasn't progressed?
No, I feel like it's gone back. I think that we're slowly becoming Planet of the Apes, if you will.
Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, where we all kind of just don't question anything and we just accept what we're fed into. And most radio stations only get X amount of singles they're allowed to play because that's what people are paying. They're putting big money behind.
That's not Planet of the Apes.
No, but people are listening to it and they're thinking this is the only thing out there, this is cool. If this is on the radio, if this is on television, if this is in the magazines, this is what must be normal. And it's not. It's crazy to me that in this world we have right now, there's an oversaturation of music. So I think people are a little overwhelmed, especially in this town. If you walk out to get a sandwich, there's some guy there picking the guitar and trying to sell his vinyl that he's pressed. And it used to be if you weren't good enough to make a record, you didn't make one. If you weren't talented enough, if you didn't have the right song, the right look, the right vibe, you didn't make a record.
That's because it's so easy to make a record now, make a recording now, because all their home recordings.
And that's good on one hand, and that's terrible on the other. Nick Lowe was here, I think, last year, and he had did a new CD. Genius. Nick Lowe's wonderful. I adore him. But it's just as easy for Nick Lowe to make a record as it is for the guy that pours my coffee in the morning to make a record, and one of them sucks, and it's not Nick Lowe. And it's this oversaturation's got people confused. People's mentality has a lot of people confused, and we're also living right now. We're living in a big fear-based society. Our news is full of fear. The movies are full of violence, and that was happening back then, but it was happening in a way where people wanted to do something about it. And that's when we got all the great songs from the 60s, the protest songs, the Buffalo Springfield, the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and now it's kind of like, I call it, I don't know if I could, I call it dust bowler music because it's depressing and it makes you feel dirty and it doesn't get anything done. You have all these singer-songwriters that are out there with their greased hair and their lumberjack shirts and they're whining about something and none of it makes any sense and it's, the chords don't go together.
My favorite era of music was the folk rock era.
Yeah.
And that was because it seemed like intelligent people were making the music.
Right.
And it wasn't, and even in the 50s music, which a lot of people like, it didn't seem like it was very intelligent people making music. And then after that it wasn't. So I think it's a question of just reflecting on the dumbness of society where we're now, instead of being first in math and science, we're 25th in math and science.
Well, I feel like if you're going to be dumb, give me I Want to Hold Your Hand. Give me something simple
Yeah, but you know, that
dumb.
wasn't so simple.
No, and it wasn't, and I think it's so funny that people were outraged by it. But it's not that many chords. People aren't trying to be a rock god, and if you're not Jimmy Page. All these people out there think they're Jimmy Page now, or all these rock guitar guys, and guess what? You're not.
What about imitation of rock moves? Yeah, how about that? Everybody doing the same kind of moves or something, whatever.
Well, this whole playing guitar like it hurts, it's not that difficult. I know a lot of people that can play guitar without looking like they're in pain. They're just trying to make it look like they're doing something. And there's some people are doing something. Some people are
how
great.
about this? Maybe the music is just show business now. Maybe it's just show business.
If it's show business, though, I want Elvis in Vegas. I want Elvis in a jumpsuit. I want him tan. I want him sweaty. I want him like he's going to die for that note. If you're going to be show business, give me something that's a show. Because Elvis even said it himself, people can go home and listen to the records. They don't have to pay for it. They're paying to see me, and they're paying to see a show. If you're going to be show business, give me a show. Give me a show it's worth paying. Because now tickets, if I want to go see the Stones now, that's my rent.
Right.
To go see Keith Richards propped up, I probably still would pay it if I had it. He's all propped up. And, you know, Paul McCartney tickets, I've spent more than I care to say going to see Paul, but they put on a show. I'm willing to pay it. I'm entertained. It's worth my $200.
What do you think about Paul doing all the Beatles songs now when he never used to do them?
Paul McCartney can do no wrong in my book, except that second marriage, but we all make mistakes, but he can't do any wrong. And it's not even, I'm sitting here just saying, you know, he's done some really stupid stuff, but I'll still always love him.
Right. Well, this has been interesting, Peyton. Getting the Peyton's views. What should we call this? Peyton's Place.
Yeah, there you go.
Peyton's Place.
There you go.
That's very interesting from anyway, my name is Jesse Goldberg, and my guest has been Peyton, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the show.